Hello, BookTube. This is the last weekly read of 2023, although this will not be my last video of 2023. My reading week has not been what I expected it to be. My initial plan was to focus on one of the two new BookTube events that were taking place this December, Remember December. So I'd selected two of the 10 books that I had on my TBR. And really the last two left outside of the two works of fantasy that I had decided to discard. So I started with Sea People by Christina Thompson. Sea People is a history of the anthropology of the Polynesian people. So the book starts with the first encounters between Polynesians and Europeans. And the next few chapters continue that focus until the voyages of Captain Cook, in which the questions of who are the Polynesians, where did they come from, and how did they get to these islands become focused upon. And then in the next batch of chapters, sort of the 19th century theorizing takes place, the really romantic sort of investigation and sort of the romantic roots of the various theories about Polynesians. And then the next batch of chapters, a more rigorous scientific approach takes center stage as anthropology proper as a discipline begins to develop. And the next chapters after that focuses on the pretty much a series of voyages to prove the possibility of how the ancestors of the Polynesians got to the islands. And then sorry about that. And the final chapter focuses on advancements in radiocarbon dating, which there's an earlier chapter on early radiocarbon dating, but this part looks more at sort of how that's improved, as well as advances in genetic studies. So on the whole, Sea People is a delightful read. It's really good. It's enjoyable. It's not necessarily a history I particularly love. It's a good few days reading, but not something that I'm particularly passionate about. I previously read this book for the BookTube Prize. Sea People was longlisted for the first nonfiction prize, and it was in my group, and it pleasantly surprised me. I think I ranked it 3 out of the 6. So I think it advanced into the next round, but I don't think it advanced much further. I don't quite remember. But, I mean, it's a really good book. And I'm happy to reread it. Next up, I planned to reread Dancer from the Dance by Andrew Holleran. Now, this was a reread about 20 years in the making. I'm pretty sure I read this late in my high school year, so it would have been more than 20 years ago. So Dancer from the Dance is a seminal work of gay literature. It's about the 1970s gay club scene, and it's about a youngish man named Malone who gets involved in the scene and eventually commits suicide because he finds the scene to be emotionally empty, which a lot of literature that focuses on the gay club scene basically all agree that the scene is rather emotionally empty. But anyway, so I read the book 20 years ago, and I remembered nothing about it. I didn't remember the plot. I didn't remember specifics. I didn't even remember whether or not I particularly cared for the book. So in a way, coming back to Dancer from the Dance was coming in fresh, and unfortunately, that didn't quite work out for me. I bailed. I think I didn't quite make 100 pages. I think it was the 4th chapter that I bailed on. So the book starts with a sort of prologue in which the narrator author is corresponding with a friend who has left the club scene and has moved to the American South. And eventually the narrator agrees to send a copy of the novel that he's working on to his friend, which is apparently the rest of the book. So the book starts with the book proper starts with this narrator going to a house that Malone has been living in and clearing out his stuff. Malone has committed suicide in the meantime. And then there's a flashback to one of the first encounters that the narrator had with Malone at a gay club. And then the book focuses more clearly on Malone by looking at his youth, his childhood, his youth, his young adulthood, until he comes to the decision that he wants to abandon his life up to that point and move to New York and live as a gay man. And so the next chapter focuses on his first year in New York as a gay man, where he meets a similarly youngish gay man named Frankie, and they begin about a year's long relationship until the needs of the plot intervene, and Malone meets Sutherland, who is the doyen of the 1970s gay club scene in New York, and the story goes from there. So up until the point where I bailed, which was where basically Malone's relationship with Frankie is basically what he wanted. But there wouldn't be much of a story had that basically been the end of it. So Malone begins to have affairs, and write the details of those affairs in a diary, which was easily accessible. And then Frankie becomes abusive. And that leads to the meeting between Malone and Sutherland. But it's just that whole sequence of it's basically disasters, or as I sometimes call it, stupid shit, because the plot needs stupid shit to happen. Kind of, it incenses me, and that really started to bug me. But even before then, I really wasn't feeling the book. That whole dialogue between the narrator and his friend in the South, the plot, the characters, it really did not interest me. I mean, the one thing I could say is that the writing is pretty good. Maybe more than pretty good, but not really enough to keep my interest. So, yeah. So this was a bail, and it makes me wonder and wish I could remember what I actually thought about the book in the first place. Although the fact that even though I have kept Dancer from the Dance and a number of other works for well over 20 years, that I never revisit them. I mean, this is the first time I've gone back to Dancer from the Dance in over 20 years. Maybe it's, I don't know, there's just probably I need to make a video where I sort of interrogate my feelings for American gay literature. So maybe something I'll do in the new year, particularly because I don't really want this particular weekly reads to go too long. But because I've noticed that a lot of the gay fiction that I've had, that I read when I was younger, when I was hungry for gay fiction, for representations of gay men, that yeah, I read them, but I never go back to them. That there was, I think, maybe something that didn't quite satisfy me. But anyway, that's, I think, a topic for a longer discussion. So that was Dancer from the Dance. Since I bailed on Dancer from the Dance, I decided to read some slim volumes of poetry. First up was a reread of Time and Materials by Robert Hass. I first read this collection last year as part of a project I had going on in July. And at the time, I rather liked the collection, although my subsequent attempts at rereading this collection did not turn out all that well. This time it was more successful, and I think my opinion on Hass is that there are some of his poems I like, and some that I can take a pass on. The next two collections I read, I had picked up from a recent LSU poetry haul. First up is Sibilance by Sally Van Doren. This is a collection that is sort of organized alphabetically. And many of the poems deal with being a mother, being a child, being a caregiver to elderly parents, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this collection. There are a lot of poems that blew me away. So yeah, this was very, very, very positive read. Equally positive was Doll Apollo by Melissa Ginsburg. So this collection is organized into three parts. The first one is, they're centered around like dolls and fabric and textiles. The second one are various plays on Apollo, both the god, but also the they're not space shuttles, the lunar project. And then the third one is more varied, and I really enjoyed these poems. They were really good. So quite happy to have picked both Sibilance and Doll Apollo up. So what I will be reading for the last 2 days of 2023 and the first few days of 2024. So Saturday and Sunday I will be reading a total of 12 volumes of manga, 6 on Saturday and 6 on Sunday. So for Saturday, I will be reading the first 6 volumes of Orient by Shinobu Ohtaka, so volumes 1 through 6. Orient is Shinobu Ohtaka's current series. It's set in an alternate Japan, in which during the Sengoku period, demons have conquered Japan and have enslaved the population, with the samurai being disbanded and sort of descendants from samurai being sort of looked down upon. And the main character, Musashi, decides he wants to fight against the demons, and he wants to join remaining order of samurai who are fighting against the demons. I read this volume, this first volume, a few years ago, and I think I rather liked it, but I never got around to actively collecting the series, although I have in the last year bought volumes 2 through 6, which I need to get to. So that's my plan for tomorrow, and I will obviously talk a lot more about the series next Friday. And I'm also planning on reading volumes 5 to 10 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse by Nakaba Suzuki. Four Nights of the Apocalypse is the sequel series to The Seven Deadly Sins. In Four Nights of the Apocalypse, 4 young knights in Britannia are prophesied to bring about the downfall of a corrupted King Arthur, who has developed in the decade plus since the end of the Seven Deadly Sins and an anti-non-human agenda. So in the land of Britannia, there are races other than humans. And King Arthur wants to create a world in which there are only humans. So one of the knights prophesied to oppose him is a young man named Percival, who grew up on a mountain called God's Finger. One day his father, Ironside, comes and kills his grandfather, Borghese, and Percival leaves the mountain to go track down his father and beat him up. While he travels Britannia, he makes friends, among them a former Holy Knight apprentice, a young apothecary, a young noblewoman, and a talking pink fox. I have been loving this series so far. I've read the first 4 volumes, and they really blew me away, and I'm looking forward to more of Four Nights of the Apocalypse. And then, with the start of the new year, I am going to be starting with my Historathon 2024 readings, and I'll be doing Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard. So Emperor of Rome is a look at the position of emperor in the Roman Empire, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that was weekly reads. Now, this isn't, again, the last video I'll be making this year. I have one planned for the 31st, for New Year's Eve. I'm going to do a year in review, where I will look at, so I'll break down the books that I've read and build on, and try to parse out how my reading year has gone. I mean, my reading year, in a way, it's been satisfying because I have read far more this year than I have ever. But the thing is that that number is pretty much exclusive, or the vast majority is manga, which I've had a blast reading. But everything else, I'm a bit disappointed by, and I'll get into that further on Sunday. Next week, with the new year, I'm planning on, obviously I'll probably try to do that discussion video regarding me and gay fiction, because that is something that I do want to think a lot more about. I might do a video on whether or not I want to actually do A Last Dance with Alan Hollinghurst. And maybe I could try that Nobel Project video. which may or may not actually happen. Maybe there'll be the video, but I might decide not to actually do a concerted project with it. And also, I might put out a call for recommendations for some authors that I may or may not be giving a second chance to, and possibly also a first chance. But anyway, BookTube, that's all I got for now. So thank you. Have a great weekend and a great evening and weekend. And until I see you on Sunday, stay safe.